Glorius is one of my favorite rulers from Lapis. She, unfortunately, has had one of the roughest existences for a ruler in this game. Her gimmick is inheritance effects, which are activate abilities that are tied to resonators and can provide a variety of utility and effects. Most of Glorius's archetypal cards are meant to boost her specifically. Glorius can discard an inheritance resonator once per turn to draw a card, and her J-ruler side, Faria, lets you use one inheritance ability for free each turn. With this, she can gain anything from swiftness to a huge 1k boost to her stats, making it easy for her to overcome most other bosses. She came out in a meta where Black Moonbeam existed, which was a stupid and cheap answer to keep J-rulers in check, that ultimately gated her out of play. Faria can give herself barrier for free, but that doesn't exactly do much when you print a cheap, unchaseable kill spell. She also struggled against Swarm and Hand Control, which were the primary meta decks for most of that cluster. Moonbeam rotated out, but Glorious still couldn't keep up with decks like Petal and Feyre, who could easily cheat in big bodies before she could even have a chance to flip. There was also a huge lack of inheritance cards in the first few Rhea cluster sets, giving Glorious very little generic support. Ayu was the final nail in the coffin. She does Glorious's gimmick of being a boss J-ruler better than the Silver Knight, and can also gain all the same benefits as Glorious for arguably less investment. Winds of the Ominous Moon gave us the first inheritance support cards in a long time, and Glorious can benefit a lot from them. In fact, Glorious can join the I can get a 10-10 body out on turn 2 club that's been restricted to basically every other Wind ruler since Lapis started. I've got two deck lists for this video, one that uses starter deck Cecil as an early aggressive boss, and another that uses Ominous Moon Lapis. I'll start with the Cecil deck, since it's the combo I was talking about. Cecil is a 10-10 5-cost resonator that reduces his cost by 1 void for every elemental in your graveyard. Furthermore, he boosts all elementals you control by 200 attack and defense. The second ability is pretty cool, but that first one is where Glorious really shines. It's very easy to get 3 elementals in your grave by your second turn, since you can discard a leaf of any color on turn 1 or 2 for a draw, and then either send White Leaf to the grave through its 0-cost inheritance ability, or play Black Leaf or Blue Leaf. You can then banish either leaf to disrupt your opponent's turn 1 play, or just have them target themselves. Since Cecil is our boss monster, we want to see him as early as possible, so run 4. While we're at it, we should also run 4 White Leaf and then either 4 Black Leaf or Blue Leaf, depending on what you want for your splash color. I'll focus on water as our third color for this build since we'll be using darkness for the second deck anyways. The rest of the deck needs to focus on ways to support Cecil and Glorious, since she acts as a secondary boss of sorts. Draw power resonators like Tama help you get to either Cecil or elementals faster. Speaking of elementals, Red Leaf is another inheritance card that we can use to fuel Cecil. Other options to consider should be things that can give Cecil other stats or benefits, like Viola who can grant flying, or Feasting who can boost Cecil. In a worst case scenario, Feasting can also bounce him back to hand. I also like Inheritance Rachel, since she can be an effective free form of removal once you've flipped Glorious, or give you another draw source if need be. Our chant lineup is meant to provide the same benefits as our resonators, and things like optional possession can give a slight stat boost and also grant a variety of symbol skills to help in different situations. Beast Queen's counterattack gives the deck a much needed removal option and works great with Cecil's high attack and defense stats. A lot of the light options get mitigated to the side deck. Despite White's power as a splash option, it doesn't really help us draw or protect Cecil as effectively as an array of counterspells will. They're just the better generic option, which you can side out as needed depending on what you're fighting. Okay, now onto the Lapis variant. We're dropping blue for black in this case, since we need it to play Lapis. While we can't really rush Lapis out like we can Cecil, he comes with plenty of good effects that make him hard to deal with. Black also provides plenty of other hard control options, making it easier to stay alive until you can slap Lapis onto the board. The deck makes a bit more use of Faria and combos than the Cecil variant, but I'll get to that in a bit. We want to keep the same core elementals but swap Blue Leaf for Black Leaf. We can remove Red Leaf from our core since we no longer need a bunch of elementals engraved to play our boss monster early. Instead, Gil uses elementals to help boost himself and produce extra will each turn. In fact, we can just kinda change around a lot of the deck's resonator base and focus more on other inheritance resonators instead. Our big combo piece this time is a Rendezvous of Light and Wind, a 4-cost instant spell that puts 4 1/1 counters on every J resonator you control, or lets you put a 4-cost or lower Wind or Light resonator from your hand into the field. If you have both a light and a wind J/resonator on field, you can use both effects. Varia fills the role for either wind or light, and you can use Light Dragon's Egg's inheritance ability to give you a zero-cost resonator to make both effects live. If you use Rendezvous to slap Lapis into the field during the end of your opponent's turn with Varia and Egg, you can do a total of 3,800 damage, or even a potential 4k if you have Flying Cloud out. You have a bit more leeway in the deck than you do with Cecil, so you can splash around your remaining cards as needed. If you want more removal options, you can put in Final Battle or Flourishing Hope. Hell, you could even cut Lapis to 3 copies to add in 2 copies of a secondary boss. There isn't exactly a shortage of decent 4-cost wind or light resonators. I'm not really a fan of Leaf Paladin in these decks because you don't really need him. He's a cool search card, but the deck has enough consistency with how much it draws that you don't really need to grab that many elementals. Your gimmick should have already popped off by the time you play him, so he's just a weak body that gives you a bunch of potential draw fodder. With September rotation inching ever closer, I feel compelled to revisit a lot of rulers from Lapis Cluster. I admittedly don't like a lot of the Lapis rulers, and the few I did enjoy were either power crept or straight shut down. Sometimes both. Hopefully we'll see a bit more power balance between colors and abilities as Lapis goes away, taking some of the worst offenders of strategical diversity with it.